The chandelier above us sparkled like a crown over royalty, but all I could hear was Sierra's laugh, sharp, cold, entitled. The crystal glasses clinked in perfect harmony with the orchestra playing softly in the corner of Maxwell's, the most exclusive restaurant in Greenwich, Connecticut. My navy blazer felt suddenly out of place among the designer gowns and custom suits. I had dressed up by my standards, ironed shirt, decent slacks, even polished my shoes. But in this room full of executives and social climbers, I might as well have shown up in pajamas. Amanda's always been a little bitter, Sierra said, swirling her champagne with practiced elegance. She chose a boring life and now blames me for succeeding. She clinked her glass against her fiancé's. Blake, investment banker. Jaw like, It was sculpted from marble and about as much personality. The table erupted in polite laughter, eyes darting toward me to gauge my reaction. My father, Richard Blake, CEO of Blake Financial Solutions, chuckled along, his eyes never quite meeting mine. My mother, Vivian, adjusted her pearl necklace and smiled that perfect smile she'd perfected over 30 years of country club memberships. Silicon Valley has all those eccentric billionaires now, my mother offered, as if defending me. Amanda just chose a different path with her little computer job. I remained silent, fingers tracing the edge of the manila folder in my lap. 5 years of receipts, bank statements, and transfers. 5 years of being the family ATM while being treated like the family embarrassment. To Sierra, my father announced, raising his glass. The youngest vice president in Horizon PR's history. Your mother and I couldn't be prouder. The guests, 20 of Greenwich's finest, plus a handful of Sierra's colleagues, raised their glasses in unison. I raised mine too, the cheap wine I'd been nursing all evening almost gone. And, Sierra added, her diamond engagement ring catching the light as she gestured, to announce that Blake and I have put a down payment on that brownstone in Manhattan we've been eyeing. Dad, Mom, thank you for believing in me, for always supporting me. My knuckles turned white around my glass. The folder in my lap suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Such an accomplishment at 27, someone remarked. Must be nice having such successful parents. Sierra laughed again. Oh, it wasn't just Mom and Dad. Amanda helped too, in her own little way. Right, sis? All those pep talks from Raleigh? Something inside me snapped. 5 years of silence. 5 years of monthly transfers while skipping doctor appointments and driving a car that made concerning noises every time it rained. 5 years of just this once and we'll pay you back and family. Helps family. That's funny, I said, rising slowly from my chair. The room quieted immediately. I wasn't known for speaking up at family gatherings. Because if I'm so bitter and unsuccessful, then how do you explain the $61,000 I've been paying on behalf of this family since Sierra's graduation? Forks froze mid-air. Wine glasses paused halfway to lips. My father's eyes narrowed dangerously. Amanda, he warned, his CEO voice activated. This isn't the time. When would be the time, Dad? During the mortgage payment I make on your vacation home every month? Or maybe during the student loan payments I've been covering for Sierra while she takes luxury vacations on Instagram? Sierra's face drained of color. What are you talking about? I brought receipts, I replied, placing the folder in the center of the table with a soft thud. And since we're celebrating your success, Sierra, maybe it's time everyone finds out who's been funding it. My mother reached for the folder, but I placed my hand firmly on top of it. Not just yet, Mom. I think I should explain first. I took a deep breath and addressed the stunned faces around me. For the past 5 years, I've been paying $28,800 in mortgage payments for my parents' lake house, $9,400 in Sierra's student loans, $3,600 in car payments for her first Audi, and $9,200 in credit cards and what my mother called career-building expenses. The silence was deafening. Even the orchestra seemed to have gone quiet. Amanda, my mother hissed, you're making a scene. No, Mom, a scene is what you made when you called me sobbing that the bank was going to take your lake house because Dad's investments fell through. A scene is what Sierra made when she threatened to drop out of her master's program because she couldn't focus with financial stress. Sierra's fiancé looked at her questioningly. You told me your parents paid for your degree. They did, Sierra whispered, eyes darting, between him and me. Amanda's exaggerating. She helped a little, maybe. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and slid it across the table to her. Last payment, 3 days ago, $2,000. Description, Sierra's rent. Again. My father stood up abruptly. We can discuss family finances privately, Amanda. This is Sierra's night. It's always Sierra's night, I replied, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. It was Sierra's night when you asked me to skip my best friend's wedding because Sierra needed help moving into her new apartment. It was Sierra's night when you suggested I sell my car to help with her brand-building trip to Paris. It's been Sierra's night for 27 years. Uncle Nathan, my father's older brother and the only person who'd, ever seen through the family dynamics, cleared his throat. Richard, is this true? Has Amanda been supporting the family? My father's face reddened. We've had some cash flow issues. Amanda offered to help temporarily. I didn't offer, I corrected. You asked. And when I tried to discuss repayment, you told me, family doesn't keep score. Sierra suddenly stood, tears streaming down her perfect makeup. I didn't know, she insisted, looking around the table desperately. Mom said the money came from Dad's business account. I would never have accepted if I knew it was coming from Amanda. Bullshit, I said quietly. You knew when you called me directly last Christmas, begging for the security deposit on your dream apartment, because Mom and Dad had cut you off. Remember that call? Sierra, when you promised to pay me back as soon as your career took off? Blake stood up next to Sierra, his expression hardening as he looked at his future in-laws. Someone needs to explain what's going on here. I opened the folder and spread several papers across the table. Happy to. Here's the paper trail. Transfers, dates, amounts, and, my personal favorite, the loan document with my name. On it that I never signed. The one Mom forged to help Sierra consolidate her student debt using my credit score. My mother gasped. I never forged anything! You gave me permission! To look into options, Mom, not to sign my name on a $30,000 loan. As the reality of what I was revealing sank in, the atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. Several guests murmured excuses and stood to leave. Sierra's boss, a sharp-dressed woman in her 50s, was watching with undisguised interest. All this time, I continued, my voice growing steadier with each word. I've lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a roommate. I've skipped vacations. I've put off medical procedures. I've worked 60-hour weeks writing code that nobody sees. And you've all treated me like I was less than, my little computer job was something to be embarrassed about. Do you know what that little computer job pays? Enough to support 4 people, apparently. Uncle Nathan stood and raised his glass. To Amanda, the real success story in this family. She had our backs while we didn't even know it. Several guests awkwardly raised their glasses, while others stared pointedly at their plates. My father's face was a storm cloud. Amanda, that's enough. We can discuss this tomorrow. I picked up my purse, leaving the folder on the table. No, Dad, we're discussing it now. Or rather, you can discuss it among yourselves. I'm done. As I turned to leave, Sierra grabbed my arm. Amanda, please. I didn't know it was this bad. We can fix this. I looked into my sister's eyes, the same eyes that had looked at me with contempt just minutes earlier, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear there. That's the thing, Sierra, I said softly. I don't think we can. Chapter 2. Roots of Resentment. Growing up in the Blake household meant understanding your place in the family constellation. My father was the sun, brilliant, powerful, the center around which we all orbited. My mother was the moon, reflecting his light, controlling the tides of our family's social ocean. Sierra was the dazzling shooting star that everyone wished upon. And me? I was more like distant Pluto. Technically part of the system, but too far removed to matter much. Our sprawling colonial home in Greenwich's most prestigious neighborhood had 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, and a strange invisible wall that separated Sierra's world from mine. Her side had ballet trophies, professional photographs, and an ever-rotating collection of the latest everything. My side had books, a second-hand computer I'd learned to program on, and a distinct lack of parental footprints. Mom, can you help me with this math problem? I'd ask at 11 years old. Ask your father when he gets home, she'd say, not looking up, from Sierra's French braid. Dad, could you look at this code I wrote? I'd ask at 15. Later, Amanda. Sierra's recital is tonight, and we need to be there early. Later never came. By 18, I'd accepted my role. I was self-sufficient, practical Amanda. The one who didn't need much attention because I was naturally independent. The one who got a full scholarship to NC State while Sierra went to Columbia on our parents' dime because she needs to make the right connections. I still remember my high school graduation dinner. My parents had reserved a private room at Le Bernardin. My acceptance to NC State's computer science program with a full scholarship had surprised them. Computer science? My mother had asked, her nose wrinkling slightly. Wouldn't business be more appropriate? It's what I'm good at, I'd replied. Well, at least it's practical, my father had conceded. And the scholarship helps. That was the closest thing to pride I'd ever seen from him regarding my achievements. Sierra had just finished her sophomore year at Columbia, majoring in communications with a focus on public relations. That night, she announced she'd secured an unpaid internship at Vogue. It doesn't pay, but the connections are priceless, she'd explained as my parents beamed. We'll increase your allowance, my father had promised. This could be your big break. That pattern continued through college. I worked part-time at the University Tech Center while maintaining my scholarship. Sierra went through 3 unpaid internships, a semester abroad in Paris, and 2 summer programs in LA. Every choice was celebrated as investing in her future. I graduated summa cum laude in 2018 and landed a job at SynthLogic, a growing tech company in Raleigh. My starting salary was $72,000. Not spectacular by Silicon Valley standards, but solid for North Carolina. My parents attended my graduation, but left early to make it back for Sierra's junior year art exhibition. Software engineering, my mother had mused at my tiny apartment warming party. It's so technical, but steady, I suppose. I'd been proud of that apartment, my first real adult space. It was small but mine, paid for with my own money. Sierra was still living in a Manhattan apartment our parents funded, working her way through unpaid internships and networking events. The first ask came just 13 months after I started working. My father called on a Tuesday evening while I was debugging code for a client project. Amanda, he'd said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. We're having a bit of a cash flow situation. I remember sitting up straighter, alarm bells ringing. Richard Blake never admitted financial weakness. What kind of situation? The market took a hit. Some investments aren't performing. Nothing serious, just temporary. Okay, we might be late on the lake house mortgage, and you know how banks get about these things. It would affect my credit score, which could impact the business. The lake house, a 4-bedroom cottage on Lake Winnipesaukee that we visited maybe 3 weekends a year. The mortgage was $2,400 monthly. How much do you need? I'd asked. Just this month's payment. I'll pay you back when the Reynolds deal closes next quarter. I'd transferred the money immediately. My father had thanked me gruffly, assuring me it was just this once. 2 months later, my mother called. Sierra's student loan payment is due, and she's between internships. Your father's investments still haven't recovered. Could you just help out? This once? Another transfer. Another promise of just this once. By the time Sierra graduated in 2020, I'd been covering the lake house mortgage for a year. When she announced she'd landed an entry-level position at Horizon PR with a salary that barely covered her Manhattan rent, my parents threw her a lavish graduation party at the country club. We're so proud of how you've positioned yourself, my father had toasted. Taking those unpaid opportunities was strategic brilliance. I sat at that party, calculating that I'd already paid $31,200 toward family expenses while still paying off my own student loans, the small amount that my scholarship hadn't covered. After the party, Sierra had pulled me aside. Amanda, I need a favor. What kind of favor? I'd asked warily. My apartment requires first and last month's rent plus security deposit. That's like $9,000, and my starting salary won't hit my account for 6 weeks. Can't Mom and Dad help? Sierra had rolled her eyes. They're tapped out from the party and helping with my moving expenses. Please, I'll totally pay you back once I start getting real paychecks. I'd transferred the money the next day. Sierra had sent a quick, "Thanks, sis, you're the best," text with a champagne emoji. She never mentioned repayment again. The pattern established itself with depressing predictability. Every crisis was temporary. Every loan was essential. Every repayment was forgotten. Through it all, family dinners and holiday gatherings continued as if nothing had changed. Sierra's career progress was celebrated enthusiastically. My promotions and raises were acknowledged with polite nods, then quickly forgotten. Tech is so stable, my mother would say dismissively. Sierra's in such a competitive field. Every win is against incredible odds. I stopped mentioning my achievements, stopped expecting recognition, focused on building my emergency fund back up after each family emergency depleted. Then came the credit card statements. My mother called one evening, sobbing. Sierra needs a new wardrobe for her promotion. Professional clothes are so expensive, and our cards are maxed out from helping your father's sister with her medical bills. I'd agreed to a $2,000 shopping trip, which became $4,000, which somehow became a recurring expectation. Through it all, I kept a spreadsheet. Every dollar, every promise, every reason. By the time Sierra announced her engagement to Blake Reynolds, son of my father's business partner and rising star at Goldman Sachs, my spreadsheet showed a total of $61,000. $61,000 of my life, my future, my security, all poured into maintaining the illusion that the Blakes were still at the top of Greenwich's social hierarchy. All while being treated like the family disappointment. The breaking point wasn't the money. It was a phone call I overheard while visiting my parents' home last Christmas. I'd arrived early, letting myself in while my mother was on the phone in the kitchen. "No, of course Amanda doesn't mind helping," she was saying. "What else would she do with her money? It's not like she has a social life or any real expenses in that little apartment in Raleigh. Besides, she owes us for all those years of raising her." Something in me hardened that day. I began making copies of every transfer, every text message, every request. I started building my case, not for repayment, but for the truth. 3 weeks before Sierra's celebratory dinner, I found it. A loan consolidation document for Sierra's student debt with my name on it, my forged signature, my social security number, my credit score being used to secure favorable terms. That night, I made my decision. I would speak up. For once in my life, I would demand to be seen. As I sat in Maxwell's watching Sierra mock my life choices while wearing clothes I had paid for, drinking champagne in celebration of a career I had subsidized, something inside me finally broke free. The invisible daughter was about to become very, very visible. Tentar novamente, ele continua de 2 em 2, com 1.250 palavras em cada sem passar nem ficar abaixo. Editar relevant chats, resultado. 8 chapter. Personal narrative project. I'll continue with chapters 3 and 4, maintaining exactly 1,250 words per chapter as requested. Chapter 3. The aftermath. The valet handed me my keys. With a sympathetic smile. Word travels fast among service staff, and the dramatic scene I'd just caused would be Greenwich gossip by morning. My hands trembled as I slid into my 7-year-old Toyota Corolla, a stark contrast to the luxury vehicles that lined the restaurant's circular driveway. I sat motionless for several minutes, knuckles white on the steering wheel, breathing in deep, shuddering breaths. 5 years of silent resentment had just exploded in the most public way possible. There was no going back. My phone vibrated repeatedly. Texts from Sierra, missed calls from my mother, a single voicemail from my father. I ignored them all and pulled out of the parking lot, desperate to escape the suffocating weight of family expectations. The night air was cool as I drove aimlessly through the familiar streets of my hometown. Greenwich was beautiful in an artificial way. Manicured lawns, historic homes maintained to perfection, not a leaf out of place. I'd never felt like I belonged here, even as a child. Perhaps that's why it had been so easy to leave. I ended up at Binney Park, a place I'd often retreated to as a teenager when the pressure of being Richard and Vivian, Blake's disappointing daughter, became too much. The park was empty at this hour, streetlights reflecting off the still water of the pond. I sat on a bench and finally allowed myself to cry. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the years of invisibility, the constant message that my achievements weren't worth celebrating. My needs weren't worth considering. My life wasn't worth acknowledging unless it served the family image. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked at the screen. Uncle Nathan. "Hello?" My voice was hoarse. "Amanda." He sounded concerned but not angry. "Where are you?" "Binney Park." "Stay there. I'm coming to find you." 20 minutes later, his Mercedes pulled up alongside the park. Nathan Blake had always been the black sheep of the family, successful in his own right as an architect, but uninterested in the social climbing that consumed his younger brother. He'd married for love rather than status, raised 2 well-adjusted children who were now in college, and maintained a level of authenticity that my father seemed to find both baffling and slightly embarrassing. He sat beside me on the bench, 2 takeout coffee cups in hand. "Quite a scene back there," he said, passing me a cup. "Long overdue, if you ask me." I took a sip. The coffee was spiked with whiskey. "Did you leave right after I did?" "Not immediately. Stayed long enough to witness the fallout." He took a sip from his own cup. "Your father is in damage control mode. Your mother is oscillating between tears and anger. Sierra is having a genuine crisis of self-image, which might actually be good for her. And the guests? Mixed reactions. Sierra's fiancé looked like someone had punched him in the gut. I think he's questioning a lot right now. Sierra's boss seemed impressed, actually. Pulled me aside and asked if you were looking for a job in New York. Despite everything, I laughed. Not exactly. Your sister's colleagues were exchanging knowing looks. I suspect they've seen the disparity between Sierra's salary and lifestyle before tonight. He paused. Your father's business associates were carefully neutral, but I saw Matthews from First National making notes in his phone. That might cause your dad some problems down the line. I hadn't considered the professional ramifications for my father. Richard Blake, financial. Advisor to Greenwich's elite, couldn't manage his own family finances. It would raise questions. I didn't mean to hurt the business, I said quietly. Maybe it needed hurting. Nathan stretched his legs out in front of him. Richard has been playing with fire for years, leverage to the hilt, investing clients' money in increasingly risky ventures to maintain appearances. The lake house should have been sold 3 years ago. This was news to me. Is he in real trouble? Not illegal trouble, just precarious. The market crash hit him harder than he's admitted. He's been robbing Peter to pay Paul, or in this case, robbing Amanda to pay for everything. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our spiked coffee. I never meant for it to go this far, I finally said. At first, it really was just helping family through a rough patch, but it kept going, and the more I gave, the more they took, and the less they seemed to respect me. That's how it works, Nathan said. People rarely value what comes too easily. You became their safety net, and they started treating you like one. Necessary but invisible. Only noticed when you're not there. My phone buzzed again. Sierra, please call. Me. I need to explain. I really didn't know. Nathan glanced at the screen. She's telling the truth, you know. Not about all of it. She must have suspected something when she asked you directly for money. But I don't think she knew the extent. Your parents compartmentalize their financial manipulations. Classic Richard move. Keep everyone in the dark so no one sees the full picture. Does that make it better? I asked. No. But it means Sierra might actually learn something from this. Your parents, on the other hand, they'll never change, I finished for him. Probably not. He drained his cup. So what now, Amanda? What's your plan? I realized I hadn't thought beyond the confrontation. I don't know. Go back to Raleigh. Focus on my career. Stop answering their calls, probably. You could do that. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. Or you could use this as leverage for a reset. Establish boundaries. Make it clear what you will and won't tolerate going forward. You think that would work? With your parents? Honestly, no. They're too set in their patterns. But with Sierra? Maybe. She's young, shocked. This could be a wake-up call. I wasn't sure I wanted to salvage any. Relationship with my family right now. The hurt ran too deep. The betrayal too fresh. I have another suggestion, Nathan said. Take some time for yourself. Use some of that money you've been saving. You must have some left, and do something just for you. Travel. Take a class. Move to a new city if you want to. Find out who Amanda Blake is when she's not supporting everyone else. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Who was I without the weight of family obligation? What did I actually want? I have a third option, he continued when I didn't respond. I have connections at several tech firms in Boston. If you wanted a change of scenery but didn't want to go too far, I could make some introductions. Boston. Far enough from Greenwich to establish independence, close enough to not feel like I was running away. Near Nathan and his family, the only relatives who'd ever truly seen me. I'll think about it, I promised. My phone buzzed yet again. My father. We need to talk. Family meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m., the house. Non-negotiable. I showed Nathan the message. Ah, Richard in CEO mode, he said with a dry chuckle. Still thinks he can command everyone's presence with a memo. Should I go? That depends. Do you have more to say? Or have you said your piece? I considered this. I've said what needed saying. Going tomorrow would just be more of the same. Them justifying, minimizing, promising changes that won't happen. Then don't go. Send a message of your own. He stood and offered me his hand. Come stay with Karen and me tonight. Your old room still has those awful wallpaper borders, but the bed's comfortable. For the first time that evening, I felt a glimmer of peace. Thank you, Uncle Nathan. As we walked to his car, I sent a single text to my father. I've said everything I needed to say. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Until then, I'm taking a break from family obligations, financial and otherwise. I turned off my phone before he could respond. Chapter 4. Recalculations. Uncle Nathan's guest room hadn't changed since I was a teenager. The blue wallpaper border with sailboats still lined the ceiling. The bookshelf still held the Nancy Drew collection I'd loved as a child, and the desk still featured the dent where I'd once thrown a physics textbook in frustration. It had always been more home to me than my actual bedroom in my parents' house. Aunt Karen had left breakfast and a note on the kitchen counter when I came downstairs the next morning. Had to run to the community center. Help yourself to anything. We love you. Take all the time you need. I made coffee and sat at their kitchen table, turning on my phone for the first time since last night. The barrage was immediate. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, and 6 voicemails. My finger hovered over the notifications, tempted to dive in, to explain myself further, to apologize. Old habits die hard. Instead, I opened my email and found the one I'd been considering for weeks, a recruitment offer from Nexus Technologies in Seattle. The salary was 35% higher than what I currently made at SynthLogic. The position was senior level, and the benefits package included relocation assistance. I'd been hesitant to move so far from family, worried about who would cover the next emergency if I wasn't within easy reach. That concern seemed laughable now. I hit reply and wrote, I'd like to schedule a final interview at your earliest convenience. I'm very interested in the position. 10 minutes later, my phone rang with an unknown Seattle number. Amanda Blake, this is Diane Reynolds from Nexus Technologies. I just received your email. Thank you for calling so quickly. Your timing is perfect. Our CTO is actually going to be in Chicago next Tuesday for a conference. Could you meet him there? We'd cover your travel expenses, of course. Chicago, not Greenwich, not confronting my family. A professional opportunity instead of a personal reckoning. I can do Tuesday, I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Excellent. I'll send you the details within the hour. And Amanda? He was very impressed with your portfolio. This is really just a formality. After hanging up, I made a decision. I opened my banking app and created a new savings account, transferring the remaining balance from what I thought of as my family emergency fund into it. I renamed it Amanda's Future, $12,183.45. What was left after 5 years of supporting my family. Not a huge amount, but a start. My own start. I spent the morning researching Seattle, neighborhoods, cost of living, tech scene. By noon, I'd drafted a budget that accounted for the higher salary but also the increased expenses. I could afford a decent one-bedroom apartment, without roommates. I could rebuild my emergency fund within 6 months. I could start contributing properly to my retirement accounts again. I could build a life that was truly mine. Around 1 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I peered through the curtains to see Sierra standing on the porch, alone, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual perfect blowout. I hesitated, then opened the door. How did you know I was here? I asked instead of greeting her. Process of elimination. You weren't at Mom and Dad's, your old friends haven't seen you, and you always loved Uncle Nathan's house. She shifted uncomfortably. Can I come in? I stepped aside, leading her to the kitchen. She declined my offer of coffee, sitting stiffly at the table. You missed the family meeting, she said. I had nothing more to say. Dad's furious, Mom's devastated. Blake is reconsidering our engagement. I felt a twinge of guilt about that last part, quickly suppressed. I'm sorry about Blake. The rest is not my problem anymore. Sierra looked up sharply. You're really done with us? Just like that? Just like, that? Sierra, I've been financially supporting this family for 5 years while being treated like I don't matter. It wasn't just like that. It was a slow, painful realization that I was being used. I didn't know about most of it, she insisted. I swear, Amanda. Yes, I asked you for money directly a few times, and that was wrong. I should have lived within my means, but I had no idea about the mortgage or the loans or, she swallowed hard, or the document with your forged signature. Mom admitted to that. After you left, everything came out. Dad started damage control, but Uncle Nathan kept pushing, and eventually they had to tell the truth. She twisted her engagement ring nervously. Blake was shocked. He said his family struggled when he was growing up, but they never lied. To each other about money. He said he's not sure he can trust someone who was raised to think financial deception is normal. I said nothing. It wasn't my job to fix Sierra's relationship. The thing is, she continued when I didn't respond, he's right. It's not normal. What Mom and Dad did, what I participated in, wasn't okay. And I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm really, truly sorry. Her apology sounded genuine, but I'd heard Sierra deliver convincing performances before. She was in PR, after all. What do you want from me, Sierra? I want to make it right. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. This is everything I have in my savings account. It's only $8,500, but it's a start. I'm going to pay you back everything, even if it takes years. I stared at the envelope without touching it. This isn't about the money. I know it's not. It's about respect, recognition, being valued. She pushed the envelope toward me. But the money is the tangible part I can start fixing right now. The rest, I want to try, if you'll let me. I finally took the envelope, not because I needed or wanted her money, but because I recognized the gesture for what it was. The only way Sierra knew how to say she was serious. I got a job offer, I said. In Seattle. Her eyes widened. Seattle? That's across the country. Yes, I'm going to take it. Because of what happened? You're running away? No, Sierra. I'm running towards something. My own life, my own choices, without family obligations weighing me down. She was quiet for a moment. When would you leave? Soon, if the final interview goes well next week, probably within a month. Can we try to fix things before you go? Or at least start? I studied my sister, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. Behind the perfect makeup and designer clothes was a young woman who'd been shaped by the same dysfunctional family dynamics that had shaped me. We'd responded differently, she by embracing the spotlight I'd been denied, me by retreating into practicality and self-sufficiency. But we were both products of Richard and Vivian Blake's warped priorities. We can try, I said finally. But I'm not coming to the house, and I'm not talking to Mom and Dad right now. That's fair. She hesitated. Blake wants to meet with you, to hear your side directly. Would that be okay? I was surprised. I suppose so. Why? He thinks I'm not telling him everything. He wants to understand what really happened. The fact that Blake was seeking the truth rather than accepting the family narrative suggested he had more substance than I'd given him credit for. Tell him he can call me. I stood up, signaling the end of our conversation. I have some work to do now, Sierra. She nodded and rose. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, I've always admired you. Your independence, your intelligence, your strength. I just didn't know how to say it. After she left, I sat back down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. There was a new email from Diane at Nexus Technologies with my travel arrangements for Chicago. For the first time in years, I was planning a trip that had nothing to do with family obligations. For the first time, I was prioritizing my own future. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for too long. Tentar novamente, ele continua de dois em dois, com 1.000 a 250 palavras em cada sem passar nem ficar abaixo. Editar, I'll continue with chapters 5 and 6, maintaining exactly 1,150 words per chapter as requested. Chapter 5. New Horizons. Chicago greeted me with biting September winds and a skyline that made Raleigh look like a small town. I'd taken an early morning flight, my carry-on packed with my most professional outfit, and a folder containing printouts of my projects, recommendations, and the questions I'd prepared for the interview. The Hotel Nexus had booked for me overlooked Millennium Park, far more luxurious than I would have chosen for myself. As I checked in, the receptionist handed me an envelope with the Nexus Technologies logo. Ms. Blake, this was left for you. Inside was a note from Diane Reynolds. Amanda, Michael had an emergency and had to fly back to Seattle this morning. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I'll be handling your interview instead. I've made dinner reservations at the Gage at 7 p.m. Looking forward to meeting you. In person. Diane. My stomach clenched. I'd prepared to meet Michael Chen, the CTO whose technical questions I'd anticipated based on extensive research. Diane was the head of talent acquisition. The interview would take a completely different direction. I spent the afternoon revising my preparation, focusing more on my leadership style, career aspirations, and cultural fit, rather than the technical, deep dives I'd expected with Michael. By 6:30, I was as ready as I'd ever be. The Gauge was a sophisticated restaurant just across from Millennium Park. Diane was already seated when I arrived. A woman in her early 50s with a sleek silver bob and bright red glasses that matched her lipstick. Amanda! She stood to greet me with a firm handshake. I'm so sorry about the last-minute change. Michael's daughter broke her arm at soccer practice. Family emergencies take priority, I said, settling into my chair. I hope she's okay. She'll be fine. 10-year-olds are surprisingly resilient. Diane smiled warmly. I've ordered a bottle of Pinot Noir. I hope that's acceptable? Perfect. As we reviewed the menu, Diane kept the conversation casual, asking about my flight and whether I'd, visited Chicago before. Once we'd ordered, however, her demeanor shifted subtly. So, Amanda, I've reviewed your technical qualifications extensively, and frankly, they speak for themselves. Your work on the SynthLogic payment processing system was particularly impressive. Thank you. What I'm more interested in tonight is understanding why Seattle. Why now? What are you looking for that you're not finding in your current position? It was a standard interview question, but in light of recent events, it carried unexpected weight. I'd prepared a professional answer about seeking growth opportunities and new challenges, but sitting across from Diane, who exuded the kind of straightforward authenticity I'd always admired, I found myself wanting to be honest. The truth? I took a sip of wine. I'm ready for a fresh start. Professionally, yes, I've gone as far as I can at SynthLogic, but personally as well. I recently had a wake-up call about some family dynamics that weren't healthy. Seattle represents a chance to define myself on my own terms. Diane's eyes sharpened with interest. Family dynamics can be complicated. I'm a firm believer that how we handle personal challenges says more about our character than any technical certification. I agree. Would you be comfortable elaborating? Not about private details, but about what you learned from the experience? I considered how much to share. For several years, I've been financially supporting family members who didn't acknowledge or appreciate it. Recently, I decided to stop. It was difficult, but necessary. That takes courage, Diane said, nodding. Setting boundaries is one of the hardest skills to master, personally or professionally. I'm still learning, I admitted. Aren't we all? She smiled. At Nexus, we value emotional intelligence alongside technical skills. The ability to recognize unhealthy situations and address them directly is exactly the kind of attribute we look for in leadership. Potential. The conversation flowed from there. Discussions of project management philosophies, team dynamics, and the challenges of being a woman in tech. Diane was insightful, occasionally challenging my answers, but in a way that felt collaborative rather than confrontational. By dessert, the interview had transformed into a genuine conversation between potential colleagues. I'll be direct. Amanda, Diane said as we finished our coffee, I want you on my team. The position we discussed would be a significant step up. You'd be leading a team of 12 developers on our new healthcare platform initiative. It's challenging work with considerable responsibility. I'm ready for that, I said, surprised by how confidently I meant it. I believe you are. She pulled a folder from her bag. This is our formal offer. Take it back to your hotel. Review it carefully. We can discuss any questions tomorrow before your flight. Back in my hotel room, I opened the folder with trembling hands. The salary was even higher than initially discussed. The benefits package included relocation assistance, signing bonus, stock options, and a generous vacation policy. It was more than I dared hope for. I called Uncle Nathan. They made an offer. I told him when he answered. It's substantial. I'm not surprised, he said. You've always been the most capable Blake, even if your parents couldn't see it. I'm going to accept. Good. His voice was warm with approval. When would you start? They want me in Seattle by October 15th, just over 3 weeks from now. Fast timeline. How do you feel about that? Ready. I surprised myself with the certainty in my voice. More than ready. Have you spoken to your parents yet? No. I sighed. Sierra's called a few times. We've talked. It's complicated. She seems genuinely remorseful, but I'm not sure if it's just because her engagement is in trouble. And Richard and Vivian? I'm not ready for that conversation. You might never be, he said gently. And that's okay too. Just don't leave with things unsaid if they're going to weigh on you in Seattle. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the Chicago skyline through the window. Tomorrow I would fly back to Raleigh, give notice at SynthLogic, and begin packing up my life. In 3 weeks, I would be on the opposite coast, surrounded by mountains and water instead of the familiar Carolina pines. The prospect was both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time, I was making a major life decision based solely on what I wanted, not on family expectations or obligations. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Diane. I accept the offer. Thank you for this opportunity. Looking forward to joining the Nexus team. Her response came almost immediately. Excellent decision. Welcome aboard. Seattle can't wait to meet you. I fell asleep that night with a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in years. The weight of family obligation had lifted, replaced by the anticipation of possibility. Chapter 6. Closing Accounts. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. My resignation at SynthLogic was met with genuine disappointment from my manager and a counteroffer that came nowhere close to matching Nexus. My roommate was sad to see me go, but already had a friend lined up to take over my portion of the lease. I hired a moving company to ship my modest belongings to Seattle and booked a one-way flight for October 14th. Diane had arranged temporary corporate housing until I could find my own place, which removed one major stressor from my plate. Sierra called every few days. Our conversations were cautious but increasingly genuine. She'd returned the engagement ring to Blake, explaining that she needed to figure out who she was without the family safety net before committing to marriage. He says he respects the decision, she told me during one call. He wants to keep dating, just slow things down until we're both sure. That sounds healthy, I offered. I've also started therapy, she added hesitantly. The therapist says our family has unhealthy enmeshment patterns and poor boundaries. I couldn't help laughing. You needed a therapist to tell you that? I needed someone objective to validate that it wasn't normal, she countered. Growing up, I thought all families operated like ours. It was a cue. Fair point. I'd recognized the dysfunction earlier, but I'd never had the courage to name it or challenge it until recently. Have you talked to Mom and Dad? She asked, as she did in every conversation. Not yet. They keep asking about you. Dad's dad. But Mom seems genuinely upset. I'm not ready, Sierra. Maybe after I'm settled in Seattle. The truth was, I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. What was there to say? No apology could erase 5 years of being treated like an ATM while being made to feel inadequate. No explanation could justify forging my signature on loan documents. A week before my departure, Uncle Nathan and Aunt Karen drove down to Raleigh to help with my final packing and take me to dinner. Over steaks at an upscale restaurant downtown, Nathan handed me an envelope. A going-away present, he explained. Not to be opened until you reach Seattle. You didn't have to. We wanted to, Karen interrupted, patting my hand. We're so proud of you, Amanda. Their pride meant more to me than any recognition from my parents ever had. 3 days before my flight, as I was sorting through the last of my belongings, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my father standing there, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes rather than his usual business suit. Amanda, he said stiffly. I didn't invite him in. Dad, how did you know where I live? Your mother kept the address. For Christmas cards. He cleared his throat. May I come in? Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. My apartment was a maze of labeled boxes and packing materials. He surveyed the scene with a frown. So you're really leaving? Yes. I start at Nexus Technologies on October 16th. Seattle. He said it like it was a foreign country. That's very far. That's part of the appeal, I replied honestly. He sighed heavily, running a hand through his silver hair, a gesture I'd seen thousands of times growing up, usually when he was trying to solve a difficult problem. Your mother wanted to come. I told her I should speak with you alone first. About what? About what happened at Sierra's dinner. He looked directly at me for the first time. What you said, what you revealed. I crossed my arms. I only told the truth. In the most public, humiliating way possible, he countered, a flash of the old Richard Blake authority showing through. As opposed to the private, humiliating way you've been treating me for years? He had the grace to look away. I didn't come here to fight. Why did you come, Dad? To explain. To apologize if you'll let me. I gestured to the only chair not covered in packing materials. He sat, looking suddenly older than his 62 years. The market crash in 2018 hit me harder than anyone knew, he began. Some investments I'd made, not entirely above board, went south. Clients were pulling out. The business was in trouble. You could have sold the lake house, downsized, lived within your means, I pointed out, and signaled to everyone in Greenwich that Richard Blake was failing, lose clients' confidence. Watch your mother's social standing collapse? He shook his head. You don't understand how it works in our world. Amanda, I understand living honestly. A luxury I couldn't afford. He sighed again. When you helped with that first mortgage payment, it was genuinely meant to be temporary. But then another crisis came, and another. It was easier to ask you than to admit to your mother that we needed to cut back. So you lied to everyone, including Sierra. Sierra was... He hesitated. Sierra was raised with certain expectations. We wanted to protect her from the reality. While I was considered strong enough to handle it, the old bitterness rose in my throat. Or just unimportant enough that my feelings didn't matter. That's not fair. None of this was fair, Dad. I worked 60-hour weeks to support a family that treated me like I was less than. Mom forged my signature on loan documents. You both lied to my face about repaying me. He didn't deny it. We were wrong. I was wrong. I came to say that. I waited, but he seemed to think that was sufficient. No mention of repayment. No real acknowledgement of the emotional damage. Just a begrudging admission of wrongdoing without any concrete steps to make amends. Is that all? I finally asked. Your mother wants to see you before you leave. She's not handling this well. And that's my problem because she's your mother, Amanda. His voice hardened. Because family means something. It meant $61,000 to me. What did it mean to you? He stood abruptly. I knew this was a mistake. You've clearly made up your mind to punish us indefinitely. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself and building a life where I'm valued. In Seattle, 3,000 miles away. He moved toward the door. When you're ready to have a mature conversation about resolving this situation, you know how to reach us. After he left, I sat among my boxes, shaking with a mixture of anger and sadness. He still didn't get it. In his mind, I was being unreasonable for not accepting his half-hearted apology and immediately resuming my role as the supportive daughter. I picked up my phone and texted Sierra. Dad just came by. It didn't go well. Her response came quickly. I told him not to ambush you. I'm sorry. Not your fault. Are you okay? I considered the question. Was I okay? My father's visit had been upsetting, but it had also confirmed that I was making the right decision. There was nothing left for me here. I will be, I replied. Seattle can't come soon enough. The day before my departure, a bouquet of lilies, my favorite flowers, though I couldn't remember ever telling my mother that, arrived with a card. We love you. We'll miss you. We're sorry. Mom and Dad. It was the closest thing to a genuine apology I was likely to get. I arranged the flowers in a vase, took a photo, and packed the card in my carry-on. Not as a sentimental keepsake, but as a reminder of why I was leaving. That night, I walked through my empty apartment one last time. The walls had been patched where my photos had hung. The furniture remained for my roommate and her friend. My life had been reduced to 4 large boxes already shipped to Seattle and 2 suitcases by the door. It was terrifying. It was liberating. Tomorrow, Amanda Blake would board a plane and begin a new chapter, one written entirely on her own terms. Tentar novamente, Ellie. Agora faça os últimos capítulos e feche todas as pontas soltas. Editar. I'll complete the story with chapters 7 and 8, maintaining exactly 1,250 words per chapter and tying up all loose ends. Chapter 7. Western Skies. Seattle welcomed me with unexpected sunshine and a skyline that took my breath away. Mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks dusted with early snow, while the deep blue of Puget Sound sparkled beneath the October sun. As the taxi carried me from the airport to my temporary corporate housing in South Lake Union, I felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. My new apartment, paid for by Nexus for the first month, was a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It came furnished with minimalist, modern pieces that made my old furniture look shabby by comparison. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances I'd never use if my previous cooking habits were any indication. I spent that first evening unpacking essentials and standing at the window, watching Seattle transform as darkness fell and lights flickered on across the urban landscape. 3,000 miles from Greenwich, 3,000 miles from expectations and obligations, and the weight of being Richard and Vivian Blake's disappointing daughter. I slept better that night than I had in years. My first day at Nexus was a whirlwind of introductions, paperwork, and orientation. Diane personally showed me to my office, an actual office with a door, not the open-plan cubicle I'd had at Synth Logic. My team consisted of 12 developers ranging from recent graduates to industry veterans, all working on Nexus's new healthcare platform. Don't worry about learning everyone's names today, Diane advised as she introduced me around. Just get a feel for the place, the culture. The real work starts tomorrow. By the end of the week, I'd learned not only everyone's names, but their working styles, their strengths, and where the project stood. The code base was elegant, but behind schedule. The team was talented but lacked clear direction. They needed leadership, structure, and someone who could translate between the technical requirements and the business objectives. They needed me. I threw myself into the work with an intensity that surprised even me. Days blurred into weeks as I restructured the team, established new workflows, and dived deep into the most challenging aspects of the project. For the first time in my career, I was being taken seriously, my opinions solicited, my decisions respected, my expertise valued. November arrived with persistent rain and darkening days. I found an apartment of my own in Capitol Hill, a charming pre-war building with hardwood floors and a bay window perfect for reading. The rent was steep, but my new salary could handle it comfortably. I signed a 1-year lease and spent a weekend at IKEA, selecting furniture that reflected my own taste rather than whatever had been affordable in college. Seattle began to feel like home in small, accumulating ways. I discovered a coffee shop, too, blocks from my apartment where the barista remembered my order. I found a running path along Lake Union that became my Sunday morning ritual. I joined a book club that met monthly at a local brewery. Small connections, tentative friendships, the beginnings of a life built on my own terms. Sierra called regularly. Our conversations had evolved from awkward and guarded to something approaching. Genuine sisterhood. I got a new job, she announced in late November. Junior account manager at a boutique PR firm in Brooklyn. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely pleased for her. How's the pay? Less than Horizon, she admitted, but enough to cover my new apartment. A real one-bedroom in Williamsburg, not the luxury place in Manhattan. No roommates, no parental subsidies. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. Pride colored her voice. It feels terrifying and good. Is that how it felt for you? Moving to Seattle? Exactly like that, I confirmed. She hesitated. Blake and I are taking things slow. He respects what I'm trying to do, becoming financially independent, finding my own path. Says it makes him trust me more, not less. He sounds like he might actually, be worth your time. She laughed. High praise from you. Our parents remained a more complicated subject. I'd exchanged a few brief texts with my mother, assurances that I'd arrived safely, that the job was going well, that I was finding my way around Seattle. Nothing substantive, nothing about the money or the betrayal or the years of emotional neglect. My father hadn't contacted me at all. Uncle. Nathan called every Sunday evening, a ritual that anchored my weeks. He never pushed me about reconnecting with my parents, but he kept me updated on family news. Your mother started volunteering at the Greenwich Library, he mentioned during one call, leading the children's reading hour on Wednesdays. It's the first community service she's done that doesn't involve the country club. That's unexpected. People can surprise you when their world gets shaken up. He paused. Richard's business is struggling. The Matthews account pulled out after Sierra's dinner. Others followed. Rumors spread quickly in Greenwich. I felt a twinge of guilt. I never meant to damage his business. You didn't. His choices did. Nathan's voice was firm. Actions have consequences, Amanda. It's not your responsibility to protect him from his. The envelope Nathan and Karen had given me before I left Raleigh remained unopened on my kitchen counter. I'd meant to open it my first night in Seattle, but had somehow never found the right moment. Or perhaps I'd been avoiding it, afraid it might trigger homesickness, just as I was finding my footing. On a rainy December evening, after receiving an email from Michael Chen praising the progress my team had made on the healthcare platform, I finally opened it. Inside was a check for $61,000 and a handwritten note. Amanda, this can't undo what was done, but it can ensure you start your new life without the financial burden of the past. Your parents don't know about this. It's between us. Use it to build the future you deserve. With love and immense pride, Nathan and Karen. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the check through tears. The exact amount I'd calculated. The exact sum my parents had taken from me over the years. Not a gift, a restoration. I called Nathan immediately. I can't accept this, I said when he answered. It's too much. It's exactly enough, he countered. Karen and I have been fortunate. We can afford it. Consider it an investment in the best Blake of your generation. But it wasn't your debt to repay. No, he agreed softly. But sometimes family means stepping in when others have failed. Not to enable bad behavior, but to right a wrong when possible. I thought about this. I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it well. Say you'll remember that not all family connections are toxic. Say, you'll come visit us in the summer when Seattle is stunning and Greenwich is suffocatingly humid. I laughed through my tears. All of the above. That night, I deposited the check and created a new investment account labeled Future. Not emergency funds for family crises. Not safety nets for others. My future, my choices, my life. As Christmas approached, the inevitable question loomed. Would I go home for the holidays? Sierra asked tentatively during our weekly call. I've already told Mom and Dad I'm staying in New York, she said. Blake invited me to meet his family in Philadelphia, but they're hoping you might come. I'm not ready, I admitted. Maybe next year. Instead, I accepted an invitation from Diane and her wife to join their family for Christmas dinner. It wasn't the traditional Blake family holiday, but as I sat among new friends in a warm kitchen overlooking Puget Sound, I realized that family could be chosen, not just inherited. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly seen, truly valued, truly at peace. Chapter 8. Full Circle. Spring came to Seattle in a riot of cherry blossoms and renewed energy. My team at Nexus had successfully launched the first phase of the healthcare platform, earning accolades from clients and recognition within the company. I'd been invited to present our work at a major tech conference in San Francisco, my first time speaking publicly as a leader in my field. My apartment had evolved from a collection of IKEA basics to a space that reflected my personality. Bookshelves lined with technical manuals and science. Fiction novels, walls adorned with local art I'd discovered at weekend markets. A thriving collection of houseplants that somehow survived despite my inconsistent care. I'd made friends, real friends, not just colleagues. Melissa, a UX designer who lived in my building and shared my love of obscure indie films. James and David, a couple who hosted weekly game nights that had become the highlight of my social calendar. Diane and her wife, Catherine, who had taken me under their wing, inviting me to dinner once a month and offering mentorship that extended beyond professional guidance. I'd even started dating again. Cautiously, selectively. Nothing serious yet, but enough to remind me that there was more to life than work and family drama. The most surprising development came in April, when I received an email from Sierra with the subject line, "I've been keeping a secret." My heart raced as I opened it, fearing some new family crisis or revelation. Instead, I found a link to a newly launched website, blakesisterconsulting.com. The homepage featured a professional photo of Sierra alongside a mission statement, helping families navigate financial transparency and healthy boundaries. The services listed included family financial mediation, communication coaching, and resources for adult children setting boundaries with parents. I called her immediately. "A consulting business?" I asked when she answered. "When did this happen?" "I've been working on it for months," she admitted. "My therapist suggested I might be able to use our family experience to help others. I've been taking courses in financial literacy and family systems." "I'm impressed," I said, genuinely meaning it. "But won't Mom and Dad be furious?" "They already know. Dad's not speaking to me at the moment. Mom's processing. But I needed to do this, Amanda. What happened to you? What we all did to you. It happens in families everywhere. People need to know they're not alone." I scrolled through the website as we talked. Under our story, Sierra had written a candid account of our family's dynamic, changing names but keeping the essential truth, how financial manipulation had damaged relationships, how silence had enabled abuse, how courage had finally broken the cycle. "I should have asked your permission," she said. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," I assured her. "It's your story too. It's our story. And I'm hoping, if you're willing, you might contribute sometimes. Maybe a guest blog post or a video call for clients who need to hear from someone who successfully established boundaries." The old Amanda would have said yes immediately, prioritizing Sierra's needs over my own. The new Amanda took a moment to consider what I wanted. "I'll think about it," I promised. No immediate yes or no. "Let me sit with the idea." "That's fair." I could hear the smile in her voice. Healthy boundaries in action. 2 weeks later, an unexpected email arrived in my work inbox from RB Lake, BlakeFinancial.com. Subject: Congratulations, Amanda. Nathan forwarded an article about your team's healthcare platform launch. Impressive work. Your mother and I are proud of what you've accomplished in Seattle. I won't pretend the past year has been easy for any of us. Your departure, and the manner of it, forced changes I've resisted for decades. The business is smaller now. We've sold the lake house. Your mother and I are learning to live with less. Sierra tells me you're thriving. That matters more than you might believe. Richard Blake. Not quite an apology. Not quite a reconciliation. But an acknowledgement. Perhaps the most I could expect from a man who had spent his life avoiding vulnerability at all costs. I drafted several responses over the following days, ultimately sending a brief but honest reply. Thank you for reaching out. I'm glad to hear you and Mom are finding your way forward. Seattle has been good for me, professionally and personally. I hope Sierra's new venture brings her the fulfillment she seeks. Amanda summer arrived with long, gloriously sunny days that showcased Seattle at its best. I took 2 weeks of vacation, my first real vacation in years, and traveled to Tokyo, a city I'd always wanted to explore. I sent Sierra postcards and my parents a single text with a photo of Mount Fuji at sunrise, small gestures of connection without obligation. In August, I flew to New York for a tech conference and arranged to meet Sierra for dinner. She arrived at the restaurant with Blake, now officially her fiancé again, this time with a more modest ring and more realistic expectations. We're paying for the wedding ourselves, Sierra explained over appetizers. Small ceremony next spring. Very small, Blake added with a smile. Just family and close friends. I'd like you to be my maid of honor, Sierra said, reaching across the table to take my hand. If you're comfortable with that. I thought about what that would mean. Returning to Greenwich, facing our parents in a public setting, standing beside Sierra as she committed to a new chapter. I'd be honored, I said finally. But I have conditions. Sierra laughed. Of course you do. Name them. I'm not staying at the house. I'll get a hotel room. I'll attend any necessary events, but I need space and privacy. Done. And I want a +1 invitation. Sierra raised an eyebrow. Is there someone special we should know about? I thought about Daniel, the environmental engineer I'd been seeing for the past 2 months. It was still new, still tentative, but it felt promising in a way my previous relationships hadn't. Maybe, I admitted. It's early, but maybe. After dinner, as we walked through Washington Square Park, Sierra linked her arm through mine. Are you happy, Amanda? Really happy? I considered the question carefully. I'm content, building something meaningful, both at work and in my personal life. It's not perfect, but it's authentic. That's all any of us can hope for, isn't it? A month later, Uncle Nathan and Aunt Karen visited Seattle during their West Coast road trip. I showed them my apartment, my office at Nexus, my favorite spots around the city. On their last evening, we had dinner at a restaurant overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Have you thought about what you'll do when you see your parents at the wedding? Nathan asked gently. I've thought about little else, I admitted. I'm not looking for a grand reconciliation, just civility. Acknowledgement. They've changed this past year, he said. Not completely, people rarely do, but enough to notice, enough to matter. I've changed too. That's what makes reconciliation possible, when it happens. Not returning to what was, but creating something new from who you've all become. I wasn't sure reconciliation was what I wanted, or even what was possible after so much damage, but I was certain that I could face my parents now, without the old anger consuming me. I could acknowledge their efforts to change without erasing the past. I could maintain boundaries while allowing for the possibility of a different kind of relationship. The week before I was due to fly east for Sierra's wedding, I received a package from my mother. Inside was a small wooden box I recognized from my childhood, the jewelry box that had sat on her dresser for as long as I could remember. A note was tucked inside. Amanda. This was my grandmother's, then my mother's, then mine. I always planned to give it to you someday. Someday kept, slipping away as we lost sight of what truly mattered. I can't undo the past. I can't erase the hurt we caused. But I can tell you that I see you now, your strength, your integrity, your worth. I should have seen it all along. With love and profound regret, Mom inside the box was her grandmother's sapphire ring, the one she'd always said would be Sierra's someday. As I slipped it onto my finger, I Realize that no financial restitution, no apology, no gift could erase the years of feeling invisible. But they could be acknowledgments of a painful truth. They could be first steps towards something different. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps understanding. The night before my flight to New York, I stood at my apartment window looking out at the Seattle skyline, no longer new and intimidating, but familiar and comforting. In the reflection of the glass, I saw not just the city lights, but my own face, stronger, calmer, more certain than the woman who had arrived 9 months earlier. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Being valued is not the same as being used. Being connected is not the same as being bound. These were the truths I had learned at great cost. These were the boundaries I would carry with me to Greenwich, to Sierra's wedding, to whatever new chapter awaited. The invisible daughter had become visible, most importantly, to herself.